Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Storytime. I'm your host and producer, Courtney Baker. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's guest, I'm so just excited to hear from. As you probably know from past episodes, I'm a huge NASCAR fan. It's literally my favorite thing to watch on Sundays, maybe besides football. But I absolutely love it being at the track. There's nothing like it. I always tell people, don't judge by what you see on TV. Actually go to a race, experience it, and you will fall in love with NASCAR. So today's interview is with Cup Series driver Erik Jones. I am so thrilled and so excited. I've never met him. I've never interviewed him before. So I cannot wait to hear his story, and I hope you all enjoy it as much as I know I will. All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm here with Erik Jones. Erik, how are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I'm a huge NASCAR fan, so I'm really excited for this interview. But I'm very curious, how did you get your start in racing, and how old were you, and what made you fall in love with racing?
Yeah, I started when I was 7 years old, racing quarter midgets. I grew up in Michigan, and really for me, as a kid, I was always into cars and always really interested in them. And my family was NASCAR fans and had watched the races on Sunday, and so I was always kind of checking them out and seeing what was going on. And as I got a little bit older, my mom actually got me into it. She read in a magazine about quarter midget racing and what it was and how kids could run and get out there and race each other. So obviously asked me, and I was all for it right off the bat, and we got involved pretty quickly after that. So it was pretty cool. It was a young age that I got going, and I never really wanted to do anything else. I wanted to race for a living, and it ended up working out. At the time, I didn't realize how big of a goal that was at 7, 8 years old, but it's been a pretty cool journey to get here.
Well, it's definitely worked out for you. And in 2013, you became the youngest driver ever to win at a NASCAR top-level competition. It was the Lucas Oil 150 at 17 years old. So for you, just how amazing did that feel? And then how did it really change your mindset knowing, okay, I may be the youngest, but I can actually win and I can do this?
Yeah, I mean, that race really, helped my NASCAR career a lot. I was in the Truck Series that year for 5 races. It was the first year, actually, they had changed the rules back to where, at 16, you could run tracks under a mile. So I think I could only do 9 races in total that year. I got to run 5, and, going to Lucas Oil or going to Phoenix that year and running that race, I knew that winning one would obviously be huge for me, but I felt good about what I had going on with KBM and everybody at that point. But getting that win that day really kind of sealed the deal for me, being able to stick with those guys and start to build a career in NASCAR, starting with the Truck Series. So that was a crazy day for me. I never would have thought a year before that I would even be in the Truck Series. So going out and being able to win a race the next year in 2013 was pretty crazy.
Love that. And then in 2015, you made your Cup Series debut. You were called to fill in for Denny Hamlin, who anybody who knows NASCAR knows that Denny is one of the best. I mean, heck, he has a race team now with Michael Jordan. So how much pressure did you feel? What was your reaction when you got the call? And were you kind of freaking out oh my God, I have to fill in for Denny Hamlin?
That day, no, it was such a crazy day. I was actually at home in North Carolina at the time. I was, racing the Truck Series that year, and they had called me after I was watching the race on TV. It had already started and was in a rain delay, and they called me, and Denny was having a back or neck issue, I think, and wasn't going to be able to get back in the race car. And they asked if I could come do it, and I said, well, I mean, I can try. You're going to have to obviously fly me there. And so they sent a plane for me. I went and hopped on it and flew in and landed as close as you can to Bristol. And then they helicoptered me to the track. I ran in, signed my form for my Cup Series license, and hopped in the car. So it was such a crazy sequence. I think it was, 2 hours maybe from the time that I left the house to the time I was strapping in the race car. And as I was strapping in, they were rolling off pit road. I was late to actually even get back on the racetrack. So I didn't even have really enough time to think about what was, going on. I just went out there and did what I could. I had to start at the back of the field. I don't think I'd ever driven a Cup car before that point. So it was really weird. I'd only been at Bristol maybe, I think, once before that, even in anything at that point. So I didn't have much time to really think about it and ponder what was happening. So it was honestly a low pressure situation for me because there was really no expectation.
Yeah, sometimes that's the best. Like, I realized it was only basically 2 hours because at least it wasn't like the night before where you're like losing sleep and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. So I guess it worked out for you then. Do you have a relationship with Denny at all? Or was it just something where it was kind of like a random, never met Denny before, but I'm going to fill in for him?
I had talked to Denny a few times at that point because I was running some Xfinity races for JGR. But actually, the reason that I even got called was the engineer on that team was Chris Gabehart at the time. And Chris and I had a relationship in late model racing. We'd worked together some. And I knew Chris actually from when he was a driver himself racing late models. So he had actually was the one who texted me and got a hold of me. And I think he convinced Dave Rogers, who was the crew chief at the time, that I should get the nod, I guess, to come and try to fill in for Denny. So the credit really kind of goes to Chris on that one for me, that I had the opportunity to fly there and hop in that thing.
That's so cool. I love hearing those stories like that. It's just, I nerd out watching every race. So to actually hear like the backstory on some of the really cool stories is awesome. And then one race I will never forget watching was your first Cup Series win in 2018. And it was the most wild win I think I've ever seen. Well, one of the most wild wins I've ever seen. What was going through your mind through those like last final turns where you're like, okay, I actually like can win this?
Yeah, that was a weird race. We were actually a lap down until I think like 12 laps to go or something in that race because we had gotten in an accident and had to fix some damage towards the midpoint of the race, and we were stuck a lap down for a majority of it. And once we got back on the lead lap, Daytona, you've kind of always got shot, and we had a couple good restarts and shuffled our way up to the front, and had the last restart was green, white, checkered, and we were actually restarting right next to Martin on that restart. And I had gotten really good push down the backstretch coming to actually after we'd taken the white flag and leading into 3 and 4. At that point, you're so focused on what's going on in the moment, you're not really thinking about the result. But when we did get that good push into 3, when we were out in front, I thought, well, at this point, I don't know that he's going to be able to get back around us. So it was pretty simple from that point. I threw a couple of small blocks. Martin had a small run a couple of times, and we were able to go and get the win. But it was such a shock that day. Super speedway racing was never my forte exactly. It was not something I had a lot of obviously experience in until I got to NASCAR. So I was really still learning a lot with it and trying to figure it all out. So it was kind of a surprise to get my first win there, but definitely a cool place to do it. No bigger stage really than Daytona for us.
Yeah, and Daytona is an amazing place to get your first checkered flag. So did it take any pressure off you? Was it kind of like, all right, got that first one out of the way? Or did you not really feel any pressure going into it anyways?
It was just the pressure I put on myself. I always want to go out and succeed and run well and run, what the car is capable of. But I think for that season, it took some pressure off because at that point we had locked ourselves in the playoffs. We were one race out from the playoffs at that point. Next week was Indy, and we were in a good spot anyways to make it on points, but it's always nice when you just don't have to worry about it. So that was cool, and it gave us some good momentum at the right time. We were able to go out and really run with what we had, obviously coming off a win and not having to focus on racing for points to try to get in the playoffs. It took a lot of pressure off there, and we were able to work on some different stuff and try some different things with the race car. So I would say that's more of where the pressure had been taken off with that win.
Makes sense. And it's been so fun to watch you just throughout your entire career. But 2020, you started the season off with a win. And then as we all know, COVID came. I was at the last Phoenix race, the last race with fans really in a normal race before everything shut down. But what a lot of people who don't follow NASCAR don't realize is that you guys as drivers have to stay in pretty good shape just because there's the heat and just all of that, stay in shape to make sure you can drive a car for that long. So how did you stay in racing shape? And I know there was the iRacing and all of that, but then also how did you adjust to not having practice laps, showing up on race day? Just kind of what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was pretty weird actually. Right when we got shut down, the week after that, Atlanta, I was moving. So I moved I moved the next week into a new house, and it's on some land here in Charlotte. And so it needed a lot of work. So the next 2 months I spent pretty much outside. I was barely inside through the next 2 months. So I was just working like crazy outside. And honestly, that kept me in pretty good shape through all of it. It was kind of tough with everything shut down. There wasn't really much we could do. So I worked a bunch outside at the house, just cleaning up around here and trying to get things back to how I wanted them. And that really kept me in shape. And then the iRacing stuff obviously kept you, a little bit mentally focused on racing itself. But, adjusting to no practice was weird at first. I'd only done it, I think twice in NASCAR, where we didn't have any practice for the race. Once was in a truck and once was in a cup car. And I felt good because our simulation stuff had been pretty decent, but it's still a challenge, right? You kind of got a 50-50 shot when you unload for the race if your car is going to be, it's either going to be good or bad. And that's kind of a tough thing to focus on and kind of wrap your head around that, maybe some days you're going to unload and it's just not going to be your day, and you're not going to be able to get it better. With practice, you can unload and struggle off the bat, but you can work to get it better. And usually by the end of the day, unless it's something really terrible, you've got your car pretty close and where you want it. And then there's tracks where I feel like it's definitely a major disadvantage, for guys that really focus on certain tracks and are good at certain tracks. You're able to go and really know what you need your race car to do in practice to be good for the race. So that takes away the advantage at some places for guys for tracks they really excel at.
Yeah, it was crazy even to hear the vets like Harvick and Martin and just everybody saying that it was so crazy that there wasn't practice. I know Kyle Busch was very vocal about it, but hopefully 2021 kind of gets you guys back to normal, and you are officially taking over the 43 car at Richard Petty Motorsports. So how excited are you for this new opportunity, and what are you most looking forward to in 2021?
I'm excited. I've been with the same manufacturer and same team for quite a while in my career. And, I think it's good to get a fresh start. It's going to be a lot different. RPM's a single car team and things are going to be a little bit different for me, but I think in a good way and in a way I'm excited for, being able to go there and be the main focus and be the main voice in the team, I think is pretty exciting for me. I think I've learned a lot in the time I've been in NASCAR and feel like I really know what I need and want out of my race cars and feel like that's going to be heard. And, with Chevrolet, I think that's going to be a great pairing as well. My family has been pretty heavily involved with GM for most of my life. I had a lot of family that worked for GM. We're all from the Flint, Michigan area, so we all worked there. And we were in the Corvette parts business growing up. So there's a really easy connection there for me. And then obviously just driving the 43 is a really cool opportunity. That's the most, I would say, one of the most recognized numbers in the sport and definitely the most historic number in the sport. So being able to drive that car is definitely a pretty big honor. And it's going to be cool to get in there and try to, make my own mark in it.
Love that. Well, I'm so excited to watch you race in the 43 car. I'm hoping I can make it back out to the Phoenix races to see do your thing. But best of luck. Try to enjoy your off season. I know it's not really an off season, but try to enjoy it the best you can. And best of luck in 2021.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.